Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Hi, this is Justin Griffith of StayLinked, and you're listening to the New Warehouse Podcast. Today's safety tip is remember to take care of you. Remember to hydrate, to stretch, remember to take your time, and remember your posture, because injuries can happen quick, but they can also happen slowly and over time. So take care of yourself.
With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer. Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more. How do you create warehouse superheroes? The answer is simple. With visual voice scan solutions from ProCensus. With record demand and labor shortages, warehouses need more effective workers and lightning-fast onboarding. Visual voice scan solutions from ProCensus enable warehouse workers to achieve superhero performance with up to 20% improved productivity and up to 99% accuracy. Hands-free barcode scanners from ProGlove paired with wearable mobile computers is just the beginning. Improved mobile interfaces with reduced keystrokes, easy-to-read screens, custom keyboards, voice-enabled interface, and more can be realized with ease on the leading WMS platforms. Sound too good to be true? Let us show you with our one-of-a-kind virtual demo. Visit procensus.com to get started today. Again, that's procensus.com to get started.
Starting March 28th, Modex 2022 lets you see what's coming and take advantage of it to power your supply chain with more possibilities for years to come. With 850 exhibitors and education sessions, Modex 2022 is where you'll find the more of everything. From illuminating education to next-generation technology and equipment in action to the latest equipment and system solutions for your supply chain needs. Visit modexshow.com and join us March 28th to 31st, 2022.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I'm going to welcome back Justin Griffith. He is the CTO at StayLinked, and you may remember from previous episode that StayLinked helps your legacy system connect to wireless devices and all different types of things, and really helps your different systems kind of connect. And as you might know from the name, also helps you stay linked as well. I've used them personally, and that's one of the big selling points for me as a user, actually, is the fact that when your session drops because of Wi-Fi issues or something, it allows you to just pick up where you left off. But we're actually going to talk about a new product that StayLinked has come out with recently called Evolve. And we're going to talk about, how that kind of came to light and really what does it do and how it's beneficial for the industry as a whole. So, Justin, welcome back to the show. How are you?
What's up, man? I'm good. Glad to be back here.
Yeah, definitely happy to have you on. I love talking to you last time. So it's good to get you back on. So why don't you, I gave my little overview from kind of a user experience of StayLinked. Did I did okay? Yeah. Okay. That's
you
good.
did great. Yeah.
But why don't you give the, the real breakdown from your side? What do you guys do? Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So StayLinked has been around as a company almost 30 years now.
Okay.
And for about 20 of those, we've been developing Smart TE. It used to be called StayLinked, and then we rebranded it as Smart TE. And so, for anybody who doesn't know, about 2/3 of the warehouses in the world run a terminal emulator.
Right.
And as Kevin mentioned, that one of the biggest issues that people face is the technology that terminal emulators speak is over 50 years old. It's one of the oldest technologies still in active use today. Literally developed the same year we put a man on the moon. So there's all these sort of issues with using that in a modern environment. And StayLinked sort of looked at that problem and said, okay, well, the only way to solve all the problems that this 50-year-old language has in a modern environment is to not use it. And we wrote a software that basically allows for a number of different advantages. We wrote our own protocol specifically for doing mobile wireless data collection for terminal emulation.
Right.
That insulates it from all the bad stuff, but also allows you to take advantage of all the great things about terminal emulation. It is old and it's not the prettiest technology, but it is incredibly fast and accurate and everywhere. Yeah. So that's what we've been specializing in now for almost 20 years.
Very interesting. I mean, because I didn't remember the part about, the technology being developed 50 years ago. So that's actually a very interesting fact there. And it's funny because you're talking about we've been working on this technology in the industry for so long. And, I think it just kind of brings up the fact of, I think, in the supply chain and warehousing world, we're so scared of change and potential disruption in the services and things like that. Hang on to something that works and it works well. So it's awesome that you guys have been able to really develop this technology and maintain it over all this time so that people can really benefit and get, the benefits of the terminal emulation, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting kind of, I think, mistake to sort of look at our industry as being sort of afraid of changing. You nailed it. They are afraid of literal disruption, not in the sort of macro technology term, but literally you have boxes that must get out the door. You have numbers that you must hit. And in a way, you can't risk that when trying out something new. Right. And so it's not that they're afraid of change or that the industry is afraid of change. It's very strongly against unnecessary risk. So I think that is important to highlight, whenever we're talking about new technologies. That's what we're up against.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been front line of when the system updated and we could not ship. And it is not a fun time at all. You can just forget about, anything else outside of work until you can ship a box. Yeah. So it's pretty crazy. But so we're talking about new technologies here. And as I mentioned, you guys have a new product or new technology, maybe you want to call it, that just recently came out. And so I'll say it's sort of the evolution maybe of StayLinked.
I see what you did there.
Right there. But it is called Evolve. So tell us about this new product, StayLinked Evolve. How is it kind of different from what you were offering before?
Yeah. So when we started to get into some of the new technologies, particularly Android, there was this conversation happening about modernization and sort of what that meant to a warehouse. And we discovered that it kind of meant everything to everybody, right? Everybody had a different definition of what modern meant. And so we got put in a position where we were constantly being asked by users, by resellers, by software providers, by manufacturers, if we could integrate technologies, or to get our opinion about whether the technologies were worth trying yet. Because again, it's a very risk adverse kind of environment to put this stuff in. And no matter what technology we looked at, no matter what, it was always kind of the same storyline that was happening with the technology. The technology had an incredible amount of promise, and it was going to be the great panacea of data collection or solve all these problems if you could get it integrated. And that theme just kept showing up. Integration. And the funny thing is that it was always kind of the same level of effort to integrate, whether you were trying to integrate something small, like beacons and sensors, or something big like robots. A lot of times the integration on the back end was the same story. So we created Evolve. And what Evolve is a IoT and automation, generally a technology adoption platform. It's an integration platform that is no code. It is tightly integrated with our Smart TE as a start. But it's an open platform that allows all sorts of technologies to talk to other technologies. So if you think of it as kind of, we treated StayLinked as its first customer, because we thought if we could teach robots how to speak Latin, we could make any technology talk to anything. So that's
okay. Interesting. So you kind of talked about the need there in the marketplace, and obviously, I think that is a huge thing is integration, and I've certainly seen a lot of cases, not only in, talking to people through the podcast, but, people that I know, and also dealing with it firsthand. There's maybe something out there that seems like it's like a fantastic thing. Like, oh my God, this could be great for us. And then you realize that your system is like very old, or, it just can't integrate the way you want it to, or the integration is just this intensive, process to get it done. And, the company doesn't really have the bandwidth right now, the resources. So it's always been this barrier, I think. So the fact that you guys are kind of knocking down this barrier is a huge thing. So tell us a little bit more about, how it really works. So like if I have, a system, right, and now I want to start adding these newer or, modern technologies, as you said earlier, I put Evolve in now. How does that kind of change the game for my integration?
Right. So if you look at any layer in the warehouse, for example, any layer of the technology, there are all these other technologies that can sort of improve these workflows, or improve the results, or improve the visibility of that. And so if we use our software as an analogy for this, right? StayLinked runs a terminal emulation software. There are a lot of new categories of technology. One of them is a remote display. Say you want to put data on a heads-up display, or a hands-up display, like a Pro Glove or whatever. Right. The integration to do that would classically mean you've got to write your own app. Right? The data has to come from somewhere, and so it might mean you have to write your own app. That app has to integrate with the back-end system somehow. So there has to be a channel of communication to get that to happen. Somebody has to write that, right? And you are not deploying device one until that app work is done. Yeah. And we saw that happening for a number of different technologies. Automation, we saw that happening with all the remote displays, and even capabilities within the device itself. These devices are incredibly intelligent, and ironically, in a lot of cases, they're only being used to do something that they were doing 10 years ago, 20 years ago for terminal emulation, right? So what we designed was a secondary software, an agent that is installed on the mobile device that allows other software, so in this case, our Smart TE client, that when we want to talk to other technologies, instead of having to write everything into our software, we can speak to Evolve. And Evolve can pipe that communication to any or many of those technologies at the same time without us having to write individual integrations within our app to feed that data. So if you have a picker in a warehouse grabbing order items off the shelf, you can feed what information we can see off the terminal emulation screen through Evolve out to a remote display. Or when you're done with your orders and you have a full cart, we can trigger through Evolve a fetch robot to come and get the cart, so you aren't having to hike it down the other end of the warehouse to shipping.
Yeah.
So it's a translation layer, if you will, for technology. And it can be either a one-to-one, where we're feeding data from our software to a technology that would normally take its own app or its own integration to use, or one-to-many, because you may want to stack these technologies on top of one another.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Interesting. And so, I mean, I love that, because I think it makes it very, very easy to start to implement these things like the robots you mentioned, maybe like a fetch robot that you mentioned there. And, instead of having to figure out how does your system communicate with this, and maybe your system is pretty old and, was not really, built to communicate with these types of newer technologies. It kind of bridges that gap, I think, which is a great thing. So you mentioned, some people in there that we know, Fetch Robotics and ProGlove as well. I mean, is this now Evolve? Is this open to like everybody, or is it only specific companies that it can work with at the moment and talk to? How does that work?
So we have some launch partners specifically for the platform. Fetch is one of them. ProGlove is another one. Honeywell, Zebra for both their heads-up display technologies, and then obviously getting more features out of the mobile device that classically wouldn't be able to be used in other applications. So being able to use the camera, for example, to take pictures. Terminal emulators generally have no idea what to do with a picture. That's not something that Telnet speaks, right? So so those are some of the things that were sort of our launch, and we wanted to give illustrations of these technologies and the partners that we picked. So it will be a building list as the technologies are out there. And as we get more requests from customers and from partners and from these solution providers, generally, we're integrating them very rapidly. And so we engineered it to be able to adopt new technologies in the Evolve platform and thereby allow customers to adopt them in their environments. It's engineered specifically for quick adoption. So
got it. Interesting. Okay. All right. And so, I mean, in that sense, then, if a company maybe is listening from maybe somebody from the IT department or somebody from the warehousing side, and there's some technology that they've been interested in, but they've had some like integration issues, and they're looking at maybe Evolve as a solution to their problem that they've been facing, how can they start to like get the ball rolling and potentially having you guys bring this technology on so they can utilize it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest challenges that people face is kind of that first step. Right. And that's really what was the inspiration for Evolve, was how do I get from where I am to where I want to be technologically? What is that first step to be able to get on a new tech? And usually it means programmers, right? And that sounded like a nightmare to us and to the customer and to the to the solution provider, because it was like, who's going to code this thing, and who's going to touch the 30-year-old computer in the back that we're not allowed to breathe on, let alone go crack open and,
if you move it, everything breaks.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be that. It's just, might it break, and then you're not allowed to touch it, right? So so the first step that we have is setting up the software, generally in evaluation mode, So they reach out to us, they reach out to our partners, or they reach out to the solution providers that we support on Evolve. And we are an excellent first step where people who want to try and deploy those technologies right out the gate, we can use our software with no programming, no scripting, no having to learn any secret incantations to get these technologies to talk to one another. It's all done through configuration in the Smart TE and Evolve platforms. So we can go from 0 to running fetch robots. Once you've got the hardware, we can do that integration measured in hours and minutes instead of days and weeks and months. Yeah. So a lot of technologies that up to now have been just kind of impossible to try very quickly outside of a demo application, right? Because a lot of people have a great demo and they'll sell a proof of concept. And then it's kind of said like, and then we'll just hook that up, right? And that sort of sounds like the easy part.
Yeah, we just drop it in here.
Yeah, we'll just drop it in. It'll be no big deal. Yeah. But again, looking at all sort of the counter pressures against that, we've found that that's where most of the technology dies. It's not even that there isn't interest in it. It's not that there isn't belief in it or that there isn't credible data to back up the benefit that could be had. It's just it gets to the point where we see a proof of concept and there's buy-off enough to do that, but they get into the integration and it falls flat, or they run out of money, or they run out of the willingness to take the risk. Right? It loses steam. So that's sort of also what we saw was that if technology is going to get adopted, it has to get adopted quickly, and it has to be able to be seen working in a customer's environment very quickly. I think that's the first step you take is setting up the environments and then try. Try the technologies that you want to try or that you've been sort of looking at for that have shown interest. Automation is a very big deal right now, but again, that initial lift might mean gut your warehouse. Like we've got to remove all the racks and let's just put in these shorter ones that the robots can reach or something. Technology, it's kind of funny because there are a lot of technology narratives out there and we tend to focus on the ones that happen so fast nobody saw it coming. But generally, as a whole, when you pull back, technology sort of moves in these sort of whatever could be consumed in bite-sized chunks, right? And that's actually generally the fastest way to get a technology to be adopted is don't be disruptive in the more classic sense of the word, right? Don't prevent them from being able to hit their marks, get their boxes out the door, allow them to continue to what we call cross the barrier of viability. Can this technology allow me to do the same job I'm doing today as good or better? And if you can do that, you're in there like swimwear, right?
Absolutely. And I think, you had a good point in there about, you had a lot of good points in there, but one certainly is, about getting it to do something quickly and start to work quickly, because I think that a lot of times you see where technologies come in and then they start to have kind of issues, and the go live date gets pushed and then it gets pushed again, and then all of a sudden you start to lose confidence or excitement even from the workforce or from the management and the operations side, because they're losing trust now that this thing is going to be solid. Like, how can it not be ready? And so it's a good thing that you're able to provide this now that helps it to move quicker with that integration.
It's a very understandable issue, right? That a customer, there are some companies, some profiles of companies that are massive, and they have a warehouse they can just burn to the ground and it won't make a difference to their number, right? So they have an innovation warehouse, and that whole warehouse's job is just to try things, just to try it out. And so those profiles of companies, they don't have the same issue, right? And then you also have the other side of the spectrum that does not have the time, the bandwidth, the money, the resources. They just generally can't move on new technology. But there's this whole middle ground, that is sort of the largest part of the market where they want new technology.
Yeah.
They need new technology, but can't take the kind of risks that could burn the warehouse to the ground, even for a
definitely
day.
not. Yeah.
Right. So the longer you stretch any proof of concept out over that, or prevent it from happening in the first place, the more people will go back to being focused on the day job, which is very, it's very results intensive, and it's very low risk. And that's very demanding in general of people's attention. So new technologies they've only got a certain window, and it's got to work, and it has to start showing results that you can quantify in that time. Otherwise it's going nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you have a great point there about this kind of middle ground of businesses where, and you talked earlier about, maybe necessarily customers don't have programmers that are at their disposal and able to do all this coding and everything that you may need without a tool like Evolve. So it's really interesting how, and obviously, hey, I would love to have a warehouse I could burn to the ground for fun, test things out. That would be great.
Just to try. Oh,
yeah. So if you know of any jobs at somewhere like that, I'll take it. But
no, I mean that's kind of a good. It's a good point. The software turns out to be a big driving factor behind the technologies. It's only one of them, but it has a huge impact. So, in our market in general, and there's really interesting data around this that, there's still like a third of warehouses that don't run any software at all. Right.
Yeah.
That are just running pen and paper the way they always have.
Gosh.
And right. Yeah. It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
But of the remaining market that actually runs software, only about 50% of them run some sort of packaged application, right? In Oracle and SAP or whatever the package is. The other 50% is something entirely custom.
Yeah.
Or it's so customized, it may as well be custom. Like they started with a package thing, but over the last couple decades, it's been so hyper specific around what they did that you couldn't go and upgrade now to the latest version of whatever they bought 20 years ago, because you'd be writing that whole thing all over again. So even for 50% of that market that runs software, there's no new version coming that has like these APIs that they could hook into.
Yeah.
And it's no small thing to walk into a customer anyway and say, okay, the first step to trying new technology is we're just going to upgrade your WMS.
No.
Right. That's a non-starter for a lot of things. You would have to have an excellent reason to touch that. And generally, it's not going to be some new handheld technology. Right. It's not going to be some new thing that will give you some, single to double digit productivity increase on your handhelds kind of thing. So there is sort of a pecking order to the risks companies are willing to take and what they're willing to touch. We saw that as being right where the solution was needed, right where Evolve could fill, was we could do these things without ever having to talk to the WMS. Or the WMS team or their programmers or things. That technology could be had today, but it had to be made easier. It had to be made simpler to install and configure. And if you could do that, there were all these technologies that people had always wanted to try and always wanted to use and would give them a huge benefit. There are all of these trends that are happening in technology, but my view of where the technology is headed, right? And this question comes up a lot, is what is the next great technology? And it seems like the answer is a bit of all of them, right? It might be 10% more robots and 20% more voice and all of that. But the trend is that the world will gradually move toward easier customization around what a customer actually does. Yeah. And so it should be easier. And there's more infrastructure and more interconnectedness between these systems where you can have a little of this and a lot of that and a little more of that and come out with a custom solution that didn't mean you had to hire programmers and start from scratch and get these totally disparate systems who would never speak together to speak together. Yeah. Right. So that's what we're pushing on is a push toward that future.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the right push, because I think, just like you mentioned, there's going to be a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And, I feel like as companies are, and especially that middle band that we kind of talked about before in a business size scale, starts to get more into adopting robotics and adopting automation and different technologies, it's going to be just a little sample of each to really get to that optimization point that they're trying to get to. And I think that's really going to be the key, is that, how do all these systems now communicate to each other, and how do they connect in a way that's simple, which you guys are now bringing to the table. So I think it's a very smart evolution of a product, and helping companies to evolve themselves by using Evolve. I mean, I think it's really, really good, and I think the interconnectedness is a key point and a key foundation for those small to medium sized businesses to really up their game and really help to compete and continue to grow into kind of this new, I guess, economy and consumer behavior that we've seen as a result of the pandemic, with everything ramping up and just the overall labor situation as well.
Yeah, I think that the interconnectedness thing is an interesting sort of point, in that, we started with sort of saying that, where, the effort to put in something small from the integration standpoint might be the same effort it takes to put in something big.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of specialties. There's a lot of specialists in a lot of these IoT and automation solutions. So you might have an automation solution that's supposed to improve picking, specifically picking. And it might be e-com fulfillment picking, and it's got to be, poly bag products so there are these hyper specific kind of solutions. But if you then want to go and refine something else, right? Like you want to improve accuracy in your receiving or something like that, there's another system that will do that, but it's the same effort. Now, so take whatever effort there was to lift this one solution off the ground. Now you got to lift that same thing, right? And then those systems might have a cross point, and you have to make sure that they talk together. Yeah. And now all of that is hanging off the WMS system, and you've also got an upgrade slated. So you're going to do this again next year, right? And that becomes sort of this counter pressure on a risk adverse thing. Now you get a lot of moving pieces and parts, right? So we also sort of see that as sort of the big trend. It's not just that these solutions have to find a platform where they can speak to one another in the more classic sense. It's that they have to be abstracted almost entirely from the systems that they depend on. In some ways, you have to find a way to get what people need, get whatever the solution needs to run without sort of dragging on what the solution is supposed to give back, right? We're supposed to give productivity back to a system. But if the integration is adding more drag to it and preventing something else that's important to the company, like some companies want to be able to stay on the latest version of the WMS every year. Right. There are companies that like that. If you hang a bunch of stuff off of one version, now you're dragging on whatever optimizations they were get out of staying on the latest software. So I think it's a really interesting thing that we're seeing, in that a lot of the resistance to these technologies is specifically because they're not abstracted. And that is what we wrote Evolve to do, is go through the same channel that's already there. It's being used in 2/3 of the warehouses in the world right now. Just use it as an instruction language instead of telling necessarily a worker to do a job. Maybe tell the worker and a bot, or tell the worker, instead of through the classic form factor they're used to seeing it on with a handheld, tell them through a heads up display or a hands up display, right? That's really where we saw the problem and the need for an answer.
And I think it's a great thing, like I mentioned before. I mean, I think it makes total sense, and it's such a need. I mean, we talked about a lot of the pain points that we feel as we want new technology, but we also don't want, as you said, disrupt in the classic sense of disruption, not technology disruption, right? So very interesting points, and I love how the Evolve product has come out and is now kind of addressing a lot of those issues. So very interesting learning about it today, and also interesting insights as well as kind of the root of where it's coming from. And I totally 100% agree, and I can't wait to see how Evolve, should I say it? How Evolve evolves over the next
there you go.
coming years.
Double evolve.
Yeah, and we'll definitely check you guys out at Modex coming up as well. So
Absolutely.
Justin, I want to thank you for coming on the show again. And if people want to learn more about StayLinked, how can they do that?
Yeah, just reach out to us at StayLinked.com. And there's an Evolve page as well. You can see the partners that we're working with today. So if you're a customer, a reseller, manufacturer, even a solution provider looking for an easier way, a faster way, a more reliable and safe way to get into customers' environments and help people get off the ground faster, we're here for it, definitely. So that's the best way. Just reach out to us at StayLinked.com.
Okay, awesome. And I'll put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well. So Justin, thank you once again for your time today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.